is going on, Star Wars fans? My name is John Solo, and I hope you are ready for another Star Wars theory. The theory we're going to be discussing has been heavily requested since the debut of Episode 7 back in December of 2015. It is, of course, about the true identity of Rey's parents. Over the past few months, Star Wars fans both young and old have been hypothesizing about Rey's lineage, and up until a few weeks ago, most people had latched onto the idea of her father being either Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, or Obi-Wan Kenobi. I say until a few weeks ago because on April 15th, the director of Episode 7, JJ Abrams, came out and said point blank, Rey's parents are not in Episode 7. This was huge news. It eliminated two of the three previously mentioned characters most people believed to be Rey's father. And honestly, Obi-Wan isn't even safe. So the question remains, after taking JJ's statement into account, who do we have left? At least as far as the most popular and accepted fan theories are concerned, there's no one left. But who's to say that that isn't the answer? Maybe, just maybe, we haven't met Rey's parents yet. So I realize that hypothesis is not an exciting one, but hear me out. First off, I'm not completely eliminating Obi-Wan as a potential answer. I honestly think it would be a really cool twist. I just don't think it's likely. Because think about it, Obi-Wan would need to have had a lady in his life that he was romantically involved with. And as we all know, this goes against the code of the Jedi, something that Obi-Wan shows that he takes very seriously throughout episodes 2 and 3. Now, those of you who are fans of the Clone Wars are undoubtedly going to point out that there was actually a hint of a romantic relationship between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Duchess Satine. In fact, at one point in the series, the Duchess says to Obi-Wan that she had loved him since the day they first met. And Obi-Wan even responds to this by saying that if he had known that at the time, he would have left the Jedi Council for her because he felt the same way. Now keep in mind, they're referencing a time even before the events of Episode 1, so this conversation is happening over a decade later. Then, sometime later in the series, as the Duchess lay dying, she tells Obi-Wan that she had always loved him and that she always will. Now some people actually think that this relationship is what resulted in not the conception of Rey, but the conception of her mother. They believe that Obi-Wan and the Duchess had been meeting in secret throughout the Clone Wars. Rey's mother was conceived, and Satine had the pregnancy and birth from Obi-Wan. Then somewhere down the line, Rey's mother got pregnant, had Rey, abandoned her on Jakku, and we're still not any closer to actually figuring out who Rey's parents are. Now, I'm not going to spend any time debunking this theory because I think any logical person would realize that it's incredibly improbable and at the very least, a huge stretch. If anything, I think Obi-Wan's relationship with the Duchess simply serves as evidence of there being a time in his life where he did not live and breathe the orders and wishes of the Jedi Order. When he was still a Padawan, before he was a part of the Jedi Council, there was a part of him that said, hey, maybe this isn't for me. Who's to say that towards the later years of his life, after nearly 2 decades of living as a hermit on Tatooine and watching over Luke, he didn't have a similar thought and say, you know, the entire Jedi Council is dead, I haven't even seen a Sith in nearly 20 years, I think it's about time I live it up. I mean, yeah, it'd obviously be pretty weird, but I honestly think that there is a better chance of Obi-Wan saying, hey, screw the Jedi Code, and going out and impregnating some random younger broad on Tatooine just before traveling off the planet with Luke to find Princess Leia, than Rey's lineage being as convoluted and messy as that other theory states. And it also doesn't involve one very small and specific aspect of the expanded universe that most Star Wars fans aren't aware of. That being said, it's still not possible because there's over a 30-year gap between Episode 4 and Episode 7, and Rey is clearly not 30 years old. And actually, if we're really gonna analyze what JJ Abrams said about Rey's parents not being in Episode 7, it couldn't be Kenobi anyway. He doesn't make an appearance in the flesh, but during Rey's visions after she grabs Anakin and Luke's old lightsaber, you can hear his voice calling out to her. Technically, that means he's in the movie and therefore not a viable candidate. And with the elimination of Obi-Wan, we've returned to my original hypothesis. Not only do we not know the identity of Rey's parents, we don't know them at all, as in they haven't been introduced to us yet. I'll share with you guys the full JJ Abrams quote. Rey's parents are not in Episode 7, so I can't possibly tell you who they are at this moment. But all I will say is that this is something that Rey thinks about too. He says that because they aren't in Episode 7, he can't possibly tell us who they are. emphasis on the word possibly. Now, admittedly, I may be overanalyzing this, but to me, it doesn't sound like he's keeping a secret from us. He's saying that even if he did tell us who they were, we wouldn't understand it because they aren't in episode 7. If he went as far as to say their names, we wouldn't even know who he was talking about. And I personally like it this way. I think it's far more interesting to make Rey a nobody from some desolate planet that's as far away from the bright center of the galaxy as possible. In a sense, there's sort of a symmetry with the original trilogy. And being that George Lucas himself has stated that one of his goals when making the prequels was to make them rhyme with episodes 4 through 6, it seems appropriate that the episodes following those would rhyme as well. And now, I want to know what you guys think. Am I onto something? Am I taking crazy pills? Make sure you leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like and share this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for weekly Star Wars content. And if your hunger for Star Wars has not been satisfied just yet, you can find a link to my Star Wars playlist as well as the Star Wars theory I talked about last week regarding Darth Vader being in Rogue One in the description down below. I'll be returning next week with another episode of Star Wars Universe 101. I hope to see you all there. But until then, keep smiling and may the Force be with ya.